2021, when we first launched our first location, we were doing about $1.8 million annually. 2024, we've surpassed $60 million in annual sales, profit margins north of 25%. Our average labor costs for our restaurants is sub 23%. We have on average of 20 employees per restaurant. The biggest secret to going from one location to 22 locations in 4 years is but the number one thing that will drive customers to your website and save you a ton of money down the line.
In today's video, we're going to be learning from the co-owner of one of the fastest growing restaurant franchises across the United States. His name is Mo Farraj, and over the past 4 years, I've seen him grow his restaurant concept from one location when I met him to now more than 20 locations in that 4-year period, and is tracking to be in the hundreds of locations within 3 more years at this growth rate. So we're going to dig in and learn from the lessons that he's learned along the way, from the mistakes that he's made and what he would do differently if he were doing it again, as well as how he thinks about financing that growth and how he thinks about private equity versus franchises, as well as any of the other details that a restaurant owner needs to know in thinking about growing their concept successfully. Mo Farraj, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What was it initially that led to you making your way into the restaurant industry after previously being a doctor, I saw?
Well, by profession, I am a dentist. I went to school for 12 years, graduated college, went to dental school, completed residency up in New York. And I actually was running Talkin Tacos with Omar, my partner, in 2021 as a food truck. One of the goals out of the food truck was entirely to honestly make a couple $100 extra a month to pay for, expenses that we had. And, it just turned into a behemoth of an operation. And we had rarely any experience. So there was mistakes that we made along the way that would have probably been avoidable had we had that experience. But there was also a lot of things that have enabled us to really execute at a rate that we never thought because of the amount of attention we gave to our ignorance in this space.
So you recognized that you had ignorance at the start of the journey and then became obsessed with learning as much as you could, as fast as you could.
1,000,000%.
What tactically did that look like? How did you learn so quickly?
So we operated the food truck for about 5 months. We had, at that time, we were selling maybe 8 meals a day. It was a high, busy traffic area, but nobody was responding. The concept wasn't resonating until one day, a young girl came by and she took a TikTok video, and quite literally the next day we had lines wrapped around the block. So that was the first mistake that we had made early on, which was not recognizing the importance of reaching out to your customer. I had absolutely zero marketing background, and it is the role that I lead today in the company. Going from drilling teeth and fixing jaws, and it's very different from reaching out to a consumer to come and eat and have a better experience, So that was the start of it. And Omar, my partner, he ran a couple of food trucks prior, but never had experience in actual restaurant spaces as far as owning and operating. So there was a lot of curveballs that we both had to learn. But the secret weapon was accepting the lack of knowledge that we had and using that to our strength.
That is so interesting to me that you had no prior marketing experience, because the way you execute today is even better than some of the CMOs that are running billion-dollar restaurant brands. What specific videos on YouTube and resources on YouTube were most helpful in getting ready to be a scale chief marketing officer as you're executing now?
It started off how to market a restaurant. As I built the foundation of appealing to customers, it became how to take pristine photography for your customers to really feel that visual and emotional connection with the food, right? Early on, I'll tell you now, one of the biggest successful maneuvers that we made early on was getting the absolute best photos for our menu items, which has helped customers realize, wow, this stuff if it looks this good, let's give it a shot. And so for us, for example, we won't spend more than a couple, maybe $50 in a video, and that's just the food that we make. where you have brands that are spending hundreds of thousands on ads or the production of a short form video for YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, whatever platform they're using. It's not about how big the budget is. It's about how you execute with that budget. And that was super important early on.
So it was watching YouTube videos in the earliest days about how you could nail your photography and how you could market your restaurant, what was working best for other restaurant concepts so that you could learn social media, search engine optimization, photography first yourself, and then be able to manage a team around doing that.
Absolutely. A wise man once told me, don't be a jack of all trades. You build a team that is capable of executing at a higher level than you will be successful. And that was one of the things that we did. I'm not a photographer by nature. I'm not a videographer by nature. So you have to accept that we are not always right in this industry. Right? You need to have the people, the foundation of who is experienced doing the jobs that need to get done. And that is a mistake that a lot of restaurant owners make, because I would say 90% of the most absolutely delicious, high quality restaurants, they'll go out of business because it's not about the food always, right? Food is incredible. If you have more fast casual restaurants and fast food chains and national brands surviving with much lower quality food, and the equation isn't just what's happening behind the kitchen. It's executing in every single cylinder that you could find.
Have there been any specific YouTube channels that have been very valuable to you?
Honestly, in general, it was searching for the problem that I needed to be solved, watching videos tirelessly and looking into and trying to execute those things that I'm learning and continuing to attempt to execute until we succeed. And you kind of combine those things until you figure it out. But the honest truth is the content that you're putting out on your YouTube channels, there is an incredible amount of information that is in those. I am learning from you in those channels because of very good researched content that helps me see flaws in my operation. We have actually pivoted in certain decision makings because of those videos that you have made. They have led to major rerouting of decisions that would have otherwise been mistakes. It's great content, super to the point. You hit the biggest points that somebody would need, and honestly, I would recommend that to anybody who is in the restaurant industry.
Really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot. I put so much work in every weekend to make those videos. One of the things I've been really impressed with you specifically on is how you stay so far ahead of consumer trends relative to most restaurant brands, even really big multi-billion-dollar restaurant brands. You guys seem to predict what consumers are going to buy before the rest of the industry realizes it. For example, you guys were the first to scale up the birria tacos trend 4 years ago when this was not a thing in restaurants. And now it is trying to be copied and widespread across other Mexican concepts, but you were the first there. Now you've recently invented a new dish that has never been on a Mexican restaurant menu before with birria ramen. And that is one of your top selling dishes that is crushing it and creating this new category in consumers' minds of how they think of your concept. How do you predict consumer behavior so accurately?
As a restaurant owner, a lot of times we get consumed in the title of my restaurant, and we don't really give much thought to who is the one that is keeping that restaurant on its feet. You're selling to the customer and you need to appeal to that customer. And if the customer tells you this is not good, no matter how great you are, no matter how good it is to you, you're not buying your own product. And that I'll follow up with inquiring about, hey, what would you guys like to see on the menu? We're always asking our customers, if you had the option to roll out one menu item, what would it be? Oh, well, I'm a huge Japanese cuisine fan. I'm a huge Peruvian cuisine fan. I'm a huge Middle Eastern cuisine fan. And one of the things that came up all the time was, I'm a huge ramen person. And you're not going to get those answers unless you are actively taking that feedback from your customers. No matter how successful you are, you will not continue to succeed unless you are continuously asking for feedback. So that's certainly the most powerful way that's led to us really putting a staple on an item that probably belonged in other restaurants and many Mexican restaurants like Birria Ramen. I'm sure it was available in other restaurants, but the world didn't know about it. And so it was our job to introduce this new item to the people who have never experienced this to the world. And how do we do that? We must ensure that, first of all, the quality is good. Second, that there is a buyer for this. There is a consumer who is looking for this product. You don't develop a product or make an item because it looks good. If I'm in, let's say, Miami, Florida, am I going to go and open up a cuisine that wouldn't resonate with the general population of that area? I wouldn't, right? And so really understanding that's huge, because people invest a lot of money in their restaurants and they don't figure out how to essentially plug the right concept in the right area. And those are things that have led us to make better decisions over the long run in executing new menu items. We just launched our crispy stack wrap, which is essentially a direct competitor to the Crunchwrap Supreme for Taco Bell. That's something that we believe is going to be a major game changer for us. And this product obviously has a consumer, right? People want this product, and you don't really have to ask many people because it's understood. That for us is how we have been able to execute great menu items and essentially keeping our growth consistent year over year.
So you're approaching it almost like a tech company where you're rolling out all of these experiments every quarter of the items you see on very popular restaurants' menus that are starting to work, to see if they're going to work with your consumer. Then you take in their feedback like a tech company and you continuously upgrade that menu item with that feedback, and then stick to the ones that are top sellers, and the next quarter roll out a series of other experiments to see which items are going to stick on the menu based on the consumer popularity.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I actually learned from one of your videos was focus on the top menu items that you're selling and drop the lowest menu items that you're selling. And so we pivoted from certain menu items where we knocked off the menu, because when you really look into it, you think this is a valuable item on your menu. But we only sold, let's just say, 0.5% of this product, of our sales is this product. Would I want my staff to put so much effort into learning a menu item that's going to sell to 1 out of every 200 customers? Or do I want them to execute flawlessly, making items that I'm going to sell to 30 out of my 50 customers? We've done just that. We've eliminated items that we believed were great items, right? And this is actually pretty recent that we've done these changes, and there's no regrets.
That is so interesting. I've seen you do this over the years where you're constantly cutting the menu items that aren't selling well, and then you're introducing this next batch of experiments based on the trends you're seeing in consumer behavior to see which ones are going to work, which ones are going to drive the higher customer ordering frequency, higher new customer to regular retention, and then you stick with those.
For us and most restaurants, if you don't embrace to-goes and deliveries, you're not going to succeed in today's world. It's really difficult. I mean, there are outliers who don't utilize this, but it is very important to embrace it, accept it, and run with it. And one of the major considerations that we have when we roll out a new item is, how is this item going to be, 20, 30 minutes later when it gets to the customer? Is it an acceptable item for them to receive? A first-time customer that comes and orders one of our, chicken achiote tacos. Those are one of our staple items. They come and they order this item. Well, is that item capable of being delivered and staying fresh to make your customer happy? Because if you're not answering these questions, will my customer be happy? Will my customer enjoy this service that I am providing to them? Will they enjoy the food that we are making for them? What other reason are we making any of these things for? Why are we working so hard? And so being very customer centered. The biggest secret to going from one location to 22 locations in 4 years is obsessing over your customer.
Can you give me a sense of your business 4 years ago when we met by the numbers and what your business looks like today so that we give the restaurant people listening a more clear sense of what's changed over the past 4 years?
Absolutely. So in 2021, when we first launched our first location, we were doing about $1.8 million annually. Today we are doing, 2024, we surpassed $60 million in annual sales and profit margins of north of 25%.
Wow. That is top 0.01% restaurant performance. That is like outstanding. Can you walk me through how you were able to achieve, even in the first location, a 1.8 million unit volume for how many square feet did you have in that location?
1,800.
1,800 square feet is super strong. How did you achieve both so much sales out of your first unit in your first year and such high margins? How did you think about that?
In 2021, we were doing about $1,000 per square foot in sales annually. In today's world, we're doing about $1,800 per square foot annually. And that, it wasn't easy, but I'll tell you that it is out there for the grabbing. And we achieved all of this without raising the prices of our menu items from 2021 until now. So many restaurants have had to raise their prices 20, 30%. Some even went north of 40, 50% just to compensate for inflation. And the founder of Costco, who absolutely refused for the hot dogs prices to go up. And that was back in the 70s. And it's now 2025 and you go to Costco to get a hot dog and it's the same exact price. And the moral of what he was trying to say is, before you pass that cost onto your customer, better fight like hell to make sure that you're fighting the people who are taking money from you as opposed to the ones that are giving you money. And that's your purveyors, your distributors, your the farms that you work with, wherever, whatever concept you're operating out of, are the means that you're using to acquire the goods to sell. You really should put the pressure on the people who are providing that for you as opposed to the one that is buying it from you.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I see restaurant owners screw this up all the time, just constantly raising prices on consumers instead of looking to their supplier and getting better rates. But that is easier said than done usually. Sometimes they'll say, no, this is our rate for this specific ingredient. How do you get them to go along with giving you price breaks? And how do you sell the vision of how much bigger your concept is going to be in order to be able to go to those distributors and say, this is the price we're paying, or we're going to somebody else?
The first thing is just the nature of the conversations that Omar and I have today with distributors and manufacturers for certain things that most restaurants use, paper products. Let's stick to paper products for a second. We know of restaurants that are single unit restaurants that get, let's just say, a case of 250 craft bags, the to-go bags for, say, $90 for 250. But we know restaurants that do the same volume that are getting those exact bags for $45. The first thing to do is to point the finger at the business owner. Your job as a business owner is to not just make food and sell it. That is why you are the business owner. It is your job to focus on most elements of your operation. Your rep for whatever product you're purchasing will never fight for you. That is a super important point. Not realizing that early on really affects the future growth of your brand. Because with compressed margins and inflation and things like that, you resort to charging your customer 35% more. They came yesterday, the menu item was $15 for, let's just say, for example, a rice bowl. They come tomorrow and it's $17.50. The restaurant's perspective is normally, oh, it's not that significant to the customer, but it is. This is a consumer-driven economy, and if you don't accept that and appeal to those customers, you won't succeed. Or rather, you won't be able to execute at the highest level. And one of the things that we must understand, and I would rally everybody to do this, accept the fact that you are fighting your own battles. The rep that you are using, that'll tell you you're getting a fantastic price. Ask 6 different restaurant owners. If one person tells you I am getting it for 30% less, believe them, because 9 times out of 10, it is true. We can't control, there's only a couple things we can control in the restaurant. We control the prices of what we're purchasing, the cost of goods. We can control essentially the revenues by, let's say, extending hours. And you can't control how many customers come through your door. You can work towards improving that. But focus on the things that you can control. In addition to that would be labor costs, for instance. Our average labor costs for our restaurants is sub 23%. And we have on average of 20 employees per restaurant.
Wow. Your labor cost numbers are some of the best I've seen. The fact that you are operating with 20 employees per unit and yet have a labor cost that's around 20% is almost unheard of in this climate where minimum wage is rising so fast and employees are demanding higher wages in order to be reliable and show up. How do you do that?
Something that we learned really early on that was crucial to our success today. The turnover rate in restaurants is incredibly high. On average, 150% of employees, turnover rate in a given restaurant. And minimum wage is the accepted norm for a payable wage, but it's not a livable wage. And until most restaurant owners understand that paying more today will yield you much more tomorrow, we don't pay minimum wage. So we pay on average between 50 to 70% more than minimum wage. And this has led to us having an average employee retention of almost a year and 10 months. We have almost little to no training necessities for current stores unless we're opening up a new location. Our employees they feel appreciated. They are making good money for the position that they are doing, and they're content and they are heard, So if you want to really nail down labor costs and increase sales, you have to accept the fact that you're going to, without a stable turnover rate, you will never be able to focus on the true craft of what it is you're trying to do, which is run a restaurant flawlessly. You're going to be running around like a chicken with its head cut off, literally just training people all the time. And that is not a good recipe for success.
How have you used digital ordering to improve your labor cost and employee retention?
I'm going to take a step back on that question for a second. Many restaurant owners, they look at deliveries as an extra. This is something that I'm going to offer, and if I get a couple orders a day, it's just extra income, extra revenue for the restaurant. And that mentality, that mindset needs to switch. The first thing you need to recognize is in this day and age, in this year, and moving forward, it's not going to change. It's only going to get more and more. The market, the consumer mindset is going to get more and more reliant on comfort. People want to work for an hour without having to be interrupted by driving to go get food. And so treating your your potential revenue streams as an extra income or a side income is not the right way to approach the situation. You first want to identify, what is your goal? Is your goal to increase revenues? Great. Well, you rely on dine-in customers and accept that the delivery platforms will be a major source of your revenue if you want them to be. And the second thing that you do is you look at, let's say, the big three, Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Those are three platforms that are business to customer, but you obviously don't have a say in a lot of things that happen with Uber, DoorDash, and Grubhub. Many times these you don't get the most valuable information, your customer's information. You cannot, you could barely even reach out to the customer. There's such a disconnect, so it hinders your operation. You can't call the customer and say, hey, you didn't select what protein you wanted. You're literally forced to guess what protein they wanted because there's just that big disconnect. And that big disconnect is also with revenues. When you're getting these orders, they're charging you fees. And by the way, I'm happy paying those fees. For me, it's all about exposure, right? But you do also want to set up your restaurant in a way where you are not reliant on these brands. You want to utilize them as a gateway.
How much in direct online ordering sales are you doing system-wide now? And how have you driven that up? What was it, say, 4 years ago?
Well, when we first started, we were at roughly 90% Uber and 10% DoorDash. So we were based in South Florida, where Uber had a very strong chokehold on the market. And with time, the ratios got a little narrower. So we were doing roughly around 55 to 45 Uber to DoorDash. Then it became close to 50-50. But during that time, there's many options for direct online ordering systems, but from the vast majority of the companies that we have evaluated and kind of looked into, we could not have done this without Owner.com. That is now today, we are 35% Uber. We are 33% Owner.com. And we have shrunk the gap. And so now we are major players in our own operation. We are saving millions of dollars a year by the conversions that we are making from Uber to Owner.com, or in our case, through us directly.
How do you get those conversions to happen? And how much in sales are you doing through your website and your app now?
We have a little over 100,000 application downloads on the App Store. And so think about this. 100,000 people at any given moment are walking around with Talkin Tacos in their pocket, right? How cool is that to think about? That number wasn't easy to achieve. It does take work and it does take focus on the things that matter most. So am I providing a better experience for my customers that order through my website, or am I providing a better experience? Or is Uber able to overpower my experience directly and provide a better experience to my customers?
So it's about creating a better experience for the customer by ordering directly from your website or your Talkin Tacos app that's powered by Owner.
Absolutely. Am I giving my customers incentives to order through me directly? Am I priced correctly? Am I giving my customer excellent prices in comparison to Uber and DoorDash? Many people will look at it and say, I want to raise my Uber and DoorDash prices to make up for what they take. The truth is, well, from our mindset, the Talkin Tacos team, the mindset is we want to raise the prices to incentivize customers to order through us directly. It's two different thought processes. And
you raise the prices on DoorDash and Uber Eats to incentivize customers to order from you directly.
Correct.
And can you talk about some of the other things that you think about when you're thinking about creating a better experience from your website or your app versus delivery apps? Like, I think at some point I saw you doing exclusive menu items.
Yeah. So we wanted to do this a long time ago. We never really had the chance to, just because it was never the right time. the stars align at a certain time, and now is the time for the last 6 months. So our staple item is on Uber Eats and DoorDash, which is our birria tacos. That's what we're known for. It's what we're famous for. The other, our app directly has items that are not existent on Uber and DoorDash. So we have our crispy stack wrap, which is the crunch wrap style menu item. It's an incredibly delicious menu item that you're not going to find in Uber and DoorDash. And to reach out to these customers and let them know that you have these menu items, there's elements that we haven't even really dived into as much, which is social media marketing. We invest incredibly heavy on our talkintacos.net website to get customers to come through the door, right? And people will laugh when we say we invest just as much on Uber and DoorDash in marketing. And they're blown away by this. Like, what the hell are you doing? You know, what is it? Why would you invest with your direct competitor? Because the mindset is different. We don't look at this as a side income. We look at this as a customer acquisition fee. And if we can get this customer to come to us through Uber or DoorDash, we now have to put in the work to convert this customer. And step one, converting customers to your website. You provide a better price point on your website. There should be no reason your menu items on your website are higher than your dine-in experience for your customers, especially if you're doing it directly. So in our case, with Owner.com, we collect all of the money that we sell to a customer. We don't really have major fees involved. So for us, if my menu item is $13.99, the customer's ordering it online on the app store or on the website for $13.99. So that's step one. Step two, that $13.99 price point, you could afford to provide incentives to your customers to order through you directly. And that is, hey, download our app and get $5 off your next order, right? So that's a second powerful tool.
How many app installs have you driven by giving people incentives and advertising your app? Because I remember you started with the app when you had less than 10 locations 2 years ago. A lot of people don't think that an app is going to work for a restaurant concept that isn't nationwide, and you weren't yet nationwide when you started the app. Can you talk me more through how you drove thousands of 5-star reviews in the App Store and 100,000 installs, and how many installs you have today and how you've driven that?
So it's funny because I didn't think it was going to work. I was one of those people that was a little pessimistic about an app for Talkin Tacos when we had 6 locations. I didn't realize the power of consumer confidence in a brand and consumer trust. We started with 6 locations. You know, we're in suburbs of Miami. We have a couple locations in the cities, but we were doing, I think we had a little over 15,000 downloads at that time. But that took a little time to achieve. This was social media marketing. This was window frames for, hey, download our app, window stickers on our bags. We have an application, flyers. We get roughly we order every month close to 5,000 to 10,000 flyers per location, because every customer is going to see that we have an application. Every customer is going to see that this flyer on my bag that I ordered through Uber says order directly through us. And if I order directly through you, I'm going to get $10 off my next order. Fantastic. Who wouldn't want that? And so if you could get those customers to order through you and then execute flawlessly after by teaching your staff, this customer's experience is more important, just as important, if not more important than Uber and DoorDash. They're equally as important, but focus on this experience, because acquiring that customer is expensive and hard, and losing them is easy and fast. So really focusing on the dynamics of what does my customer want and what is their experience? What are they receiving from me? I always looked at it like Well, they're paying us $10 for food and the rest for service. That's how we look at our customers.
When did you know, when you had that first location, that it was time to expand to multiple locations? And how did you think about financing that versus franchising? Did you think about loans, private equity, franchising? And how did you ultimately make the decision to pursue the path that you did?
The first thing I would say, we bootstrapped the whole operation. We are a incredibly skilled team at bootstrapping, and this has been pretty evident over the last couple of years.
Bootstrapping mean you did not take on outside capital, loans, any of that stuff. You just did it on profits.
Till this day, we are debt free. We have funded the next 19 locations, 95%, and that has all come from profits of the business.
That is extraordinary. That is so impressive. How much did you spend on that first location?
We bought the restaurant out we paid the previous owner $90,000, took over the lease, and we spent $75,000 to convert it to a Talkin Tacos.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you looked for a restaurant concept that already had a lot of the requirements that you needed, but wasn't doing well for whatever reason, bought out the concept, including the lease, put in $75,000 in capital improvements. And then within 1 year, you were doing over $1 million out of that unit with 20% net margins.
Absolutely.
That is so impressive.
Thank you. This is a result of bootstrapping. There were certainly things that we could have paid $600,000 to get done for the restaurant. To be quite honest, we painted, we cleaned, we replaced the door handles. We were the ones who, there's things we can't do, right? We're not plumbers, we're not electricians. But going second generation has been a strategy of ours early on. We have now pivoted to focus on more stable, build outs. You do get headaches down the line where, you're still dealing with plumbing issues. And so there's pros and cons, but bootstrapping early on, before you spend all of your money or put yourself into debt, make sure the concept works. Make sure that people love what you're providing.
If you were going back in time and advising yourself on the really important things that you did in that first year that you should definitely do again and lean into, what would you say the top 3 things are that made the biggest difference in you being able to scale so quickly and achieve such strong revenue growth and economics that have enabled you to go multi-location so quickly, so profitably?
The first was accepting our business model. We pivoted early on to many mistakes that we made. When a customer was unhappy, we went to the root of the problem. What was wrong? And we fixed it. We implemented structure to change that. Remember, we were inexperienced. And that has led to a higher return rate of customers. So that's number one. The second was focusing on instead of choosing to raise the cost on the customer, focus on improving your margins, which will allow you in the end to grow by tackling the purveyors and vendors that you're using. And third, it goes without saying that when we first signed on with Owner.com, we were doing before we signed on, we were doing $4,000 or $5,000 a month in direct sales, and right now we're doing $1 million plus a month just on Owner.com, and that's directly to us, right? We have saved close to 28% on that $1 million, which is almost $250,000 a month now. So making good decisions early on and listening to those who have done it before and are doing it today and will do it in the future, really important. I see this more with people who, more successful people who accept that embracing technology, embracing deliveries and third parties, but shifting to yourself as well, shifting to your own direct to consumer avenue. And that has been monumental for us. We do our own marketing, certainly, but there's a lot of things that need to go into a website, let's call it a concoction, right? It's not just putting menu items and waiting for a customer to come. That's what a lot of companies do. They'll get you to, hey, sign up, we'll get a website, we'll provide delivery, guaranteed. Well, great. That's not the hard part. The hard part isn't getting me a delivery driver. The hard part is getting me the customer. And that's been something that Owner really has excelled at for us. We are doing our own marketing. We're not entirely relying on Owner.com because they're not a marketing company. Owner's not a marketing company, but they have tackled the things that a direct-to-consumer delivery platform needed to tackle, which was helping acquire customers through SEO, through website enhancing, just putting the right keywords in the descriptions of menu items. And there's a ton of things that go into it in the back end. And if I knew it, I would have opened up Owner.com myself. I don't, but they're our chosen company. So those are the three things that I would say I would focus on early on.
Can you talk about Google's impact in your business and how ranking at the top of Google drives you sales? Roughly how many new customers and how much in sales that drives you?
I want everybody to do an experiment, a 2-minute experiment. Open your phones and go to google.com and search tacos in Miramar, Florida. Miramar, Florida has north of 200,000-300,000 people in that area, and I could be understating it. And if 60 to 70% of the page is not Talkin Tacos, then don't take away anything from my conversation. But it is, you search for tacos in this area, we're going to be there. We will be at the forefront of any of our competitors. And that's not just through putting money behind the ads, the keywords. The more important thing when it comes to Google ranking, so there's two different things, two different concepts in Google. The first is you are paying money to be seen. That is easy. People could do that, but we don't have the biggest pockets, right? We're competing with much bigger brands and much more wealthier people. And so the second thing is your organic SEO. What is your, and this is something that Owner has excelled in. We don't really have to do much SEO, to be quite honest with you, because it's all done by their team when it comes to the website build and certain strategic uses of keywords in certain areas. That's all done by them. So, but that is a big component of why when you search, when you do this experiment right now, while you're listening, you're going to see the results. And that's all it is. Typically within 6 months to a year is a sweet spot for our restaurants to be at optimal SEO for new locations. And it's crucial. It all comes from your website. So invest heavily into your concept without really thinking of drawbacks, because if you do it correctly, you're going to see that return on your money.
What return are you seeing from it?
We've seen a 25% increase on Owner.com today from 2 months ago, Owner.com. So we have consistently quarter over quarter have been able to see double-digit growth organically. This is organic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Roughly how much is that in the past 2 months? What was it 2 months ago and what is it today?
2 months ago, we were doing around 600 and let's call it 700,000 average. Today, we are doing roughly around $900,000 a month, 900 to $1 million on a busier month, but around that number.
All through your website and your app?
Entirely through the website and the app.
Wow.
We do about 70-30, 70 through the website, 30 through the app.
30% is going through your app now.
Yes.
Your own Talkin Tacos app in the App Store.
The people love the app. People love the app. And that was from Owner, by the way. When we signed up and they rolled this out, I was the first to say, I want this app. Although I didn't believe in its entirety, it always felt cool to have an application. Not that we would get customers, but the idea of it was cool. And in today's world, we're doing over $250,000 to $300,000 a month on the application.
What have you heard from your guests and your team about your app?
It's seamless. It's very well designed. It's not most customers look at photos, right? So I go on something, I see photos, good quality, I'm hooked. Now sell me with everything else. Description, what does it feel like? What does it look like? When I click the button, how long does it take to go to the next? Uh, Apparently, and I didn't know this, but this is helpful for a lot of restaurant owners to know. You can have two different companies create the same exact app. And if one company prioritizes consumer guest, they would invest more into how fast the next page loads to get that customer to stay on the website, to stay on the application. And so it's not always about money, the price point. You invest today for tomorrow's return. That's what the greats do. That's what you should follow.
It's so well said. Yes. How do you think about having a loyalty program in your restaurant and giving away free food? Because some restaurant owners have the valid concern, that if you give away free food, it could make your food costs go way higher than the advised 30%. But you guys give away tons of food through your loyalty program, and yet you've got a food cost that is well under 25% system-wide. How have you done that, and how do you think about it?
As sales increase, your food cost naturally will decrease because you'll have more purchasing power. You'll have more. There's a lot of things that go into negotiating as well with these purveyors. But if you focus early on strictly on pinching for that extra food cost and not giving the customer and trying to convert, we're seeing the fruits of our labor today from the work that we did last year and the year before. So we give every single new customer, a $10 voucher. And all you have to do is spend $20. So you spend $20, you're going to get $10. We lose on some of those items. That's okay, because we're investing today for tomorrow's return. And you could do that when again, one of the videos that you had made was selecting the right menu for the right area. And so if people love my chicken tacos, I'm going to try to push chicken tacos over steak tacos, because my chicken tacos yield me more return and the price difference is not much from a steak taco, right? So I pushed, the moment I saw that in one of the videos, you could look this up. I pushed my steak combinations, the tacos that we make, behind my chicken. Instantly saw a decrease in steak and just a shoot up in chicken taco sales. That's what you have to do. You have to be aware of everything that you're doing.
It's so well said. So what I'm hearing, to make it even more actionable to restaurant owners, is it sounds like your strategy in giving away lots of value to your customers with your loyalty system is first thinking very carefully about your food costs and your menu items, economics, and then designing your ordering experience in a way that pushes the high margin items in upselling and in your menu structure and order itself. So you've got a very high margin on your typical order size. And then you, with your loyalty system, give away items that are lower food costs, but to the guest seem like extremely great value if they get free churros or free horchata from your concept. But you can afford to do that because you've set up your menu in such a way that you've got such a strong, healthy margin from the typical order that you can give people free appetizers, beverages, and desserts, low food cost items every 2 to 3 orders, in order to encourage that repeat ordering behavior, which is why you've got some of the best retention that I've ever seen in a restaurant.
Absolutely. That is, you couldn't have said it any better. The things that we have done, and by the way, we love buy one get ones for our customers. We'll do a buy one get one all month long on a certain item.
On which items do you do it?
Chicken tacos, for example. We don't have a problem with that. Why? And it goes against the very fabric of what most big successful restaurateurs would tell you. But for us, it works. Customers see, hey, and I actually misspoke. It's not every month it's chicken. Sometimes we're doing churros, buy one get one free. Sometimes we do our cheesecake, buy one get one free. Sometimes we do our chicken taco once, and it's normally around National Taco Day. For that month, we'll do a campaign where we give buy one get one. We're actually considering right now eliminating entirely the delivery costs for our customers, eating that cost. And we have this very strong theory backed by proven science that it's going to be yielding us much better returns in the future. And that 72% return rate on our application and website, I'm certain will hit the 80s and the 90s.
What you just said is really important for restaurant owners to hear. This idea that you can give away buy one, get one specials as long as you're doing it in a strategic execution where you pick dishes that are either relevant to a specific month, like National Taco Month, or dishes that are very low food cost and high margin, like your churros and agua fresca and horchata and Mexican cakes, because those items, even with buy one, get one, it takes the food cost from, I'm guessing, less than 10% average on those dishes, because they're appetizers, beverages, and desserts,
Absolutely.
which that tends to be the rule, to then, if you give away two, it's a 20% food cost, which is still well within the range of what you're advised, but it ends up attracting so many more guests because they don't see your food costs. They see the menu list price. So when they see, wow, I'm getting a churro that's listed on the menu for $8.99, that's the price-ish? Ish, okay. $8.99 churro, and I'm getting two of them. So I'm getting like a $9 item for free in ordering from this restaurant. They don't see that a churro has a low food cost. This tends to be the case with all of the best desserts on a restaurant's menu, but it ends up driving that many more incremental customers because they see that they're getting the best possible value in ordering directly. And it sounds like you also make those offers especially available on your website and your app to encourage that direct ordering behavior that's most profitable for you. And then you share some of those savings with the consumer.
100%. I would like to add to that point also, when it comes to our customers that order through our website or the app, mistakes happen sometimes, and we will always own up to our mistakes. And what I love about Owner.com was that in our case, when and I'm sure that's how it is for everybody, when mistakes happen, delivery drivers take the food and they walk away, and or the food, we need to dispatch another driver. Not every cost is thrown onto the restaurant. If a customer has an unpleasant experience because of a delivery, Owner helps with that. So we are always, it's affordable for us to always do what's right. We are always trying to do what's right by the customer.
That's probably how you've taken your rating to a 4.7 at your flagship location average on Google, because you're constantly ensuring that when a customer is inconvenienced or something goes wrong, you make it right, investing in that long-term relationship, knowing that if you can fix it for that customer, they're way more likely to have lifelong loyalty to you because you do the right thing, unlike so many different restaurant concepts.
Absolutely. So just a quick point, 3.9 to 4.7, that was really hard to get to because we had to kind of grow, but our average rating right now is a little over 4.8 and a half.
Wow.
Yeah. So if you looked at every Talkin Tacos on Uber, on DoorDash, typically you get a little lower ratings on Uber and DoorDash because there's delivery drivers, there's unknown factors you can't control. But most of the time, that's gets resolved and customers understand. But through things that we can control, we're at roughly around 4.8 average. So if you look at any Talkin Tacos, we should be close to that. We really aim to impress our customers.
From the outside in, Mo, you look like an overnight success in going from one location to more than 20 locations in 4 years and tens of millions of dollars in system-wide sales. But I know as a friend to you over the past 4 years that you're always very humble and quickly realizing when you've made mistakes and then correcting your behavior and learning from those mistakes. So what are some of the mistakes that you've made over the years? And what have you learned from those mistakes that have made you a better restaurant owner today?
I'll tell you there, you look at the mindset of a lot of business owners, and in particular, I'll speak about restaurant owners. Many chef-driven restaurants, they carry this aura within the restaurant that the chef is always right. It's always what the chef wants, and I'm no chef. Omar is incredibly talented, and he leads our most of our new menu creation and formulations and recipes. But for those restaurants that have these chef-driven mentalities, where it's their way or the highway, One thing that, for example, my partner Omar would learn from is the people who work in their positions, 8, 10, 6, doesn't matter, hours a day, doing that same one thing. They have suggestions on how to improve the process, right? And if pride was a factor, we would have never increased our sales from an average of $80,000 per employee to almost 220 today. These employees that are giving you this sound advice to allow them to be more productive. The easy answer is, what do you know? This is my establishment. But certainly pivoting and making those corrections early on before we really grew into a much bigger chain, that mistake, that detour for every location would have led us astray. But where we are now, we have adjusted to meet the employees' needs, the employees' suggestions. We have reformulated the way our restaurant is laid out by conversations with employees about how to optimize this space for them. We don't believe in the decision maker is the owner or the manager. We facilitate these things, but more decisions are made, in all honesty, by listening to the problems that our employees face and adjusting them.
It's so wise of you that you're not just learning from listening to customers, but learning from listening to those frontline team members that you have as line cooks and your cashiers about what they think could be done to improve the process, which does two things. It shows you all of these opportunities from their perspective because they're doing it, like you said, 6, 8, 10 hours a day. So they've got a deeper level of context in those areas. And then the second thing it does is it shows them that the owner cares about what they think about the business and them as individuals, not just the role they're doing, but how they could grow within the company in being able to advise the owners or management team on how to improve the concept. Plus gets them thinking like owners of the restaurant and asking them those questions of, if you were the owner, what would you do? Which then makes their behavior and overall mindset at work that much more effective.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all goes back to making someone feel valued. That's the main point that we want to get across today. You can't really put it any other way. When someone feels valued, they give you more.
Mo, I've got to say, I've learned so much from you over the years and in this conversation, and deeply appreciate your generosity in being willing to share the biggest lessons you've learned, your numbers, all of the different mistakes that you've made and how you've improved your business as a result so transparently with the restaurant community so that other owners that aspire to do what you've done have this resource to reference, similar to you in the early days when you were watching YouTube videos, in order to stand on your shoulders and learn from you. It's extremely generous of you to do and unnecessary given all of the success that you're seeing with your concept, with franchisees banging down your door, begging you to let them open a concept. So I deeply appreciate not only you taking the time, but your kindness and generosity as a human and being willing to share so transparently all that you've learned.
I'm honored to be able to be in this position, and I do want to thank you. You've been a monumental step in allowing us to really make some really important decisions when it came to the platform features that we have. I value the relationship with Owner more than any other, honestly, relationship in our business. I mean, look, man, the what you guys do, the care that you guys put into Talkin Tacos, it's monumental, and I'm certain that you guys do this for everybody else. So kudos to your team, kudos to you guys. You guys are incredible, and I'm happy to come back anytime you want.
If you've enjoyed this interview with Mo from Talkin Tacos and you want to continue learning from some of the most successful people in the restaurant industry, I highly recommend clicking to the right of me right now to check out the interview that I did with Mario Del Perro, one of the owners and chairman of Mendocino Farms, which has grown from one location to more than 50 locations over the past 15 years and built one of the most iconic brands in the industry. There's a ton of insights that he covers there on developing scale infrastructure in terms of your team, the right systems and processes, how to think about expanding to multiple locations if that's one of your ambitions, and a whole lot of other insights from his journey. Take care and hopefully see you around this channel soon.